political economy, state and gender. This topic is part of about the formulating gender sensitive development goals, and last block is about development to various development process and service delivery mechanism. If you look at all this stuff, the notion that economic development might have a different impact by gender development, it will have a different impact on male and female and in their concerns on socio-economic change in 1960 is very universal. That is the first she has challenged. These are the some of the works really putting the spotlight on the specific ways in which colonialism and modernization had affected women. Clearly talked about the ways in which, as well as we come to know that development certainly it will have a different impact on development policies pursued by newly independent nations at the height of social movement to look into the entire development process differently. Like from 1950 to 1970, there were various social movements in the new establishment of United Nations. All these factors really helped us to field of women in development. Now we call it as a gender and development. In the like Esther Boschrup's study helped us to formulate the policy pattern there. She clearly pointed out that like male members, the women, they do contribute for the productive work, but family and the children, since they are, it is not the whatever the for 95 these 4 international conferences it is mentioned that like what is meant by the gendered approach to development, as well as how perspective, as well as we have evaluated the role of state and national mechanisms in mainstreaming in the process, as well as globalization, whether it has promoted women's development or it has obstructed the gendered entire block. Specifically block 2 in the course 2 MGS 002, we have discussed about the gendered approaches to development. First, I have mentioned that 4 international conferences has convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. We call it as a SIDA convention. That has helped us to look into the entire development process from a gender perspective, and in that Millennium Development Goal, as well as what we are now. These are the some of the historical moments where we could able to look into the existing development governments as well as the policy measures taken at the international level, specifically when we talk about the introduction of microcredit program as well as like conditional cash transfer scheme in 1990 to fight poverty globally. These are the some of the significant programs where they could able to address the women's poverty, even though we have to critically look into the existing development process from a gender perspective. Let me explain regarding the research and teaching on gender and development. As like if you look into the entire discipline of gender and development, it has evolved since 1970s, as well as in this gender and development as a discipline, it has borrowed various frameworks from various disciplines of social sciences, including economics, to look into the women's issues. The women and development that appeared during the 1970s have largely given a way to the more encompassing gender and development perspective generated from the important theoretical changes that transformed feminist theory in the 1980s. That we need to understand that the first, immediately after the publication of Esther Boschrup's work, there is an emergence of women in development, then feminist as well as various development of women and development. By encompassing both women and development as well as women in development, there is the emergence of gender and development perspective in the 1990s, as well as it is the very significant feminist theory that is called gender and development theory. Over a period of time, it is not only a significant tool to do research from a feminist perspective, as well as it became the part of women in development. Specifically, it was appreciated among the feminist, liberal feminist approach. There is the women and development approach. They also critique the existing liberal feminism and orthodox development, disadvantage the women, as well as it categorically pointed out that the women are in the disadvantaged position in the existing production, get into educational systems or to access resources are male and female, and it did not address the existing gender relation. It specifically talked about the only providing certain economic opportunities for women. Thereby it specifically thought that the women could also able to improve their status and position, treated equally like male members in the society. But that assumption has failed. By studying the development approach, it has incorporated both vid and vad perspective, as well as it considered gender as a central category of analysis. The emergence of postmodernism, with its emphasis on differences and attention to particular context and identity issues, contributed to this convergence. When we talk about the gender and development approach, it has analyzed the existing capitalism or market economy operates in the society, whether it is disadvantage for the women or whether it gives the advantages to women, as well as the role gender and development approach. We could able to generate gender differentiated data sets, gender inclusive measures of well-being, gender concerns and empowerment goals. There are various. Now if you look at that, from 1980s onwards, the government of India could able to collect the gender differentiated data sets. There they could able to collect the gender disintegrated data, whether it's health, education or access to resources, with regard to access to land and other resources, educational opportunities for the women. Everything we could able to collect gender disaggregated data by looking for the any development, any progress or development. One could able to make it that whether women could able to progress well in comparison with the male members in the society, or they are lagging behind male members in the society. That one could able to see when we collect the gender disaggregated data, as well as due to the gender and development approach. Thereby they could able to include women's concerns as well as various empowerment goals to assess the women's entire empowerment process. Like here we could able to see that apart from these measures, there is various policy measures like population control policy measures, short-term employment programs for women. There is various measures to increase women's literacy as well as the providing educational opportunities for the women. Like in the World Development Report 2012, we could able to clearly see that there are two concepts they have elaborately discussed. One is that efficiency as well as smart economics. Then this efficiency and smart economics, the primary goals should be promotion of women's well-being, while economic growth help to mainstream the various gender issues in the policies, programs at various level, whether it's a national level, subnational level, local level. Due to the mainstreaming of gender at the national, international as well as subnational level and local level, to mainstream the gender concerns in their policies, as well as when they implement also, due to the mainstreaming of gender issues, they could able to address women's issues while implementing various policies and programs. Alone goals, women and men being considered as a homogeneous group and without regard to reducing other social inequalities such as race, class and ability as a concept, because in that when we talk about the gender equality instead of gender equity, we fail to understand the existing gender differences between male and female, as well as we considered both of them as a homogeneous group and we provide various opportunities for both of them equally. When we without understanding that existing patriarchy, how the existing patriarchy and social inequality operates between the male and female, since the patriarchy is very strong in most of the countries, specifically when we look at the South Asia, here patriarchy operates differently and they try to control the female in a different manner, whether it's their mobility, education, access to health service, or like the feminists, they critically look into these concepts and they say that it is not possible to look into the both men and women as a homogeneous group. As factors, they could also be disadvantaged. When we talk about the women as an homogeneous group, particular women or particular group of women, do they have an access to various resources including land? Talk about the human beings, it's not possible to consider both male and the women also. We need to consider various factors which differentiate women based framework by postmodern writers, feminists and other women organizations in developing countries, and the rise of neoliberal economic policies that continue being implemented. How this market also operates in a very patriarchal manner. When we talk about the existing production relations, we have to look into the what are the economic opportunities the women may get, what are the economic opportunities men will get, how this market as well as the various economic institutions, individuals, they are supposed to take care of the entire family, as well as we consider they need to be economically empowered, thus they could able to support the other individuals within the society. But that existing theory, many of the times it's failed. Whatever the earnings of the male members may not be percolated among other individuals within the family or within the society. Thus the feminists, they critique the entire production relations as well as they have provided certain frameworks to look into the entire development process. For example, the feminists, they have provided the one framework that is called the capabilities approach, developed by the Amartya Sen as well as Martha Nussbaum, as well as human development paradigm, then human rights approach that emphasizes the economic and social rights. Before I explain further about the gender democracy and development, I would like to overview of the existing measures taken since 1970s. We need to understand that until 1970s, women were very invisible in economic development analysis, and they were ignored by the policymakers except in their roles as mothers and wives. During that period, the policy sought to make better mothers through child-focused health and nutrition and family planning programs. As well as during that period, there was an emergence of welfare approach. This welfare approach considered women as an individuals who are supposed to take various welfare measures. They are not part of the existing development paradigm. In the 1970s, there was a dramatic shift and the women are perceived and as well as this is due to the result of women's movement as well as rise of feminism, as well as there is a women in development approach. In this entire process, if you look at that, the concept of gender has been reflected, as well as that if you talk about the concept of gender, as well as if you look into the differences between the two terms, that is the biological difference between male and female, as well as if you look at the gender differences, activities and attributes. When we talk about that development, when we talk about the development, the process of development, certainly both male, female and other genders. When we talk about the entire development process, the poverty among female are very high. Thus, when we address any issues related to poverty, we need to formulate specific policies to address poverty among women. Thus, when we talk about the gendered approach to the development, it has to be like we should not add anything addition to the existing policies to increase women's visibility, or like address women's concerns in the existing development process. That should not be the approach. Like, we need to properly understand the existing gender differences between male and female. Accordingly, the proper policies to be formulated, as well as it has to be addressed. In this entire process, as a learner, you need to understand that there are certain definite moments in the history that really helped us to understand the existing gender differences between male and female, and the importance of formulating specific policies to address women's concern. One is that Women in Development Program, as well as the specific policies that has created to control the population, and as well as the second wave of women's movement in the 1970s, a shift in economic development thinking. Specifically, we need to talk about the basic needs approach, as well as the women's role in economic development addressed by the Esther Boschruf. These are the very definite moment in the history of the women's history to look into the entire development process differently. Thank you so much for listening this session. In some other session, we will elaborately discuss more about the course MGS 002. Thank you.
Good morning. I am going to discuss